Hello and welcome to the first edition of Wednesday Warfare, right here on Wrestling with Regret. And as you can see, I'm wearing the white suit this week because it's time for a clean slate as I review NXT and AEW Dynamite back-to-back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Now, I know this is a series that's going to generate a lot of passionate opinions on both sides. Lots of very loyal NXT fans, lots of loyal AEW fans. It's a war that's been going on online for the last 9 months or so, and it's incredibly annoying to watch. But one thing I want to make perfectly clear here, no matter what side you're on, and preferably I'd like to have no one take sides, because I think what we should be taking into account is we as wrestling fans should consider ourselves very lucky that now we finally have a choice on what wrestling show to watch on a Wednesday night. I believe that competition makes wrestling companies work harder and can often make them better. And lest we forget, every night of the week now you've got some kind of wrestling to watch. So we live in a gilded age right now. If you're a hardcore wrestling fan, this is a great time to live in. So whether you're an NXT fan or an AEW fan, I just want everyone to just kind of sit back and realize, you know, we kind of live in a good time now as fans. It's a wonderful moment when you have this kind of competition between two shows, two different shows, not just Raw and SmackDown, but between NXT and AEW. Who's going to win the first week of this new Wednesday war? We're going to find out right now. We'll begin with NXT, which this week not only has limited commercial interruptions, but also has a 16-minute overrun. You can tell it's a Triple H project because they love putting themselves over. We get another big self-important We Are NXT hype package to open the show, the second in 3 weeks, and then we go to our first match of the night as Adam Cole defends the NXT Championship against Matt Riddle. Matt won the rematch street fight with Killian Dane last week to earn this opportunity. It's a big clash of styles here, of course, Riddle with the striking ability and Cole with the technical skills. Late in the match, Riddle kicks out of the Panama Sunrise, and on the flip side, Cole kicks out of the Floating Bro. We get some fight forever chants. In the end, Riddle keeps trying to go for his arm bar, but Cole decks him in the face with his wrist cast and hits the last shot to win the match and retain the championship. A great opening match and a hell of a way to try and combat what AEW is kicking their show off with at the exact same time. But we're not done yet, because as Cole is celebrating, all of a sudden Finn Balor appears. We haven't seen him on any kind of WWE programming since he lost at SummerSlam to The Fiend. He gets the mic and says that Finn Balor is NXT, so what a huge shakeup for NXT. They get the former NXT champion back on the black and gold brand, and I think that's really good, because I think right now it seems that when it comes to like trying to think about who's the best competitor for Adam Cole right now in the main event scene, right now I don't think there's anyone who can really make a strong case or make a really convincing argument or make it believable that they can really compete with Cole. I think Finn Balor coming in adds instant credibility and makes him a legitimate contender right off the bat. We get a hype package for the match later on between Shayna Baszler and Candice LeRae. It includes a clip of Shayna beating up Dr. Britt Baker. I see what you did there, guys. Then we see Velveteen Dream on his couch on stage, surrounded by a bevy of ladies. He talks about the climax of life, and he also challenges Roderick Strong to a rematch for the North American Championship. I loved their match they had for the title 2 weeks ago on NXT, so I'm looking forward to this rematch. We then get a hype package for next week's Cruiserweight Championship match on the show as Drew Gulak defends against Lio Rush. It seems like 205 Live's not dead yet. Everyone assumed it was just going to be absorbed in NXT. There might still be some of that integration between the two brands, but right now 205 Live is still alive, and it's going to be on Fridays to coincide with Friday Night SmackDown. So there you go. I'm excited for that match too. Up next, Io Shirai takes on Mia Yim. This is a great match. I think these two have really good chemistry together. I don't have much to say about it other than you should go out and watch it. Ultimately, Io wins the match with her trademark moonsault, and that's the end of that. We then get another hype package on the night, this time focusing on Tegan Nox. She's been injured, she came back, injured again, and so she's been through rehab and she's hoping to make another comeback, and here's hoping she stays healthy this time. 2 weeks ago on the USA Network premiere, Johnny Gargano had a big heartfelt speech where he said he was here to stay on NXT. He was interrupted by Shane Thorne, and they had a bit of a scuffle, and then this is the match to follow that up, Gargano versus Thorne. I think Shane looked really good here in this matchup. He's not really been utilized all that well in NXT this year. He's been kind of floating in the ether, especially since his partner from TM61 was released a while ago. But yeah, good stuff here. Ultimately, Gargano wins with a big kick to the mush. I hope Shane Thorne gets a chance to be showcased more, because I think he showed here in this particular matchup that he can perform just as well as anyone. Shayna Baszler defends the NXT Women's Championship against Candice LeRae, who earned her shot at the title 2 weeks ago in the Women's Fatal 4-Way match. And this is a match all about, you know, the cold, ruthless ability of Shayna Baszler versus the tenacity and the will and the drive of Candice LeRae. At some point, she gets her arm worked over a lot, but she's able to really kind of persevere. She hits 3 consecutive topes to the outside onto Shayna. She finds a bunch of different creative ways to get out of the Kirifuda clutch near the end of the match. match, but ultimately she's caught one time too many, and like so many others before her, she taps out to the Kirifuda clutch from the submission magician. So the big long reign continues for Shayna, one more notch in her win column. Despite the fact that Shayna holds on the belt for a little longer at this point, I still really enjoyed the match. We get another high package for next week as Walter gets ready to take on Kushida. Then it's time for an all-Brits battle up next as Pete Dunne takes on Danny Burch. Kind of a shorter match, not either their best work, but it still gets the job done, very physical. Dunne wins the bitter end. Then right afterward, Damian Priest jumps him from behind. I believe this is Damian's first real program we've seen him enter into, so now we know what both these guys are going to be doing for the next few weeks. Backstage, Adam Cole tells his undisputed buddies to forget about Finn Balor and focus on retaining those tag team championships, and that's the match that's up next in the main event as Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly defend against the Street Profits, who are accompanied by Wale on this night. Montez Ford takes a lot of heat for the bulk of this matchup, makes a hot tag to Dawkins though, who's a house of fire until his leg ultimately gets tweaked, and so Fish and O'Reilly work on that for a while. I love this the second hot tag we have here, where Fish goes for a big top rope splash into Dawkins. Dawkins gets out of the way and dives and makes the tag to Ford. Ultimately, Roderick Strong with a well-timed distraction on the apron allows the Undisputed Era to retain after hitting the high-low. So you think the show is over, Adam Cole gets on stage to congratulate his friends, and all of a sudden, Tommaso Ciampa returns. He's on stage, they have a stare down, he and Cole, as we fade to black, and that certainly complicates things. I was under the impression that they were going to kind of hold off on Ciampa going for the belt while they were going to have this program between Cole and Finn Balor, but now it seems that maybe it's going to be kind of a concurrent thing. Maybe Ciampa and Balor are going to be fighting to see who faces Adam Cole, maybe a triple threat, something like that. It seems to be what they're going for. I'm kind of surprised that Ciampa's back this soon. Maybe my math is off, my time math is off based on when he dropped the belt, but there we go. Ciampa is back, and that's how NXT wraps up. Time now for the debut of AEW Dynamite on TNT, and your commentary team for the show is Jim Ross, Excalibur, and Tony Schiavone, who's making his long-awaited return to wrestling commentary. First time since, I believe it was XWF in Florida, where he did some commentary there, and so it's been a long time coming. You can tell from his delivery, he's loving this, and really, I think Schiavone's return to wrestling, like mostly through the What Happened When podcast and his involvement in AEW as it's been building up, I think that's been one of the most feel-good things about AEW's ascension to where they are now, is that, hey, we got Tony Schiavone back. The first match of the night sees Cody, who's accompanied by his wife Brandy Rhodes, taking on Sammy Guevara. Cody comes out first and he gets a ton of pyro. You think he owns the place or something. The story they're trying to tell with this matchup and the build to it is very similar to what they did with Cody and Darby Allin at Fyter Fest. In fact, they even make that comparison on commentary as well. The only difference here is, though, I think that Cody and Darby are both baby faces, and Sammy is very clearly a heel, as we've seen him as how he's been presented over the last several AEW shows. Sammy has the speed and the agility, which is giving Cody a hard time. Cody does have the experience edge over Sammy, though. At one point, Sammy gets knocked out of the ring and Brandy's right in his face, pointing her finger at him, and you know where this is going, because Cody goes for a dive after him and Sammy pulls Brandy into harm's way, so Cody collides with Brandy on the outside. It seems kind of excessive for a match where there's not really a whole... we're not in the middle of a rivalry. There's no like real blood feud to this, but it certainly gives Sammy a lot of heat from the get-go. It establishes right away, this is a real dirtbag of a guy. You don't want to like this person. Anyway, about a minute later, Brandy hits Sammy in the face with a shoe. Disaster kick by Cody. Sammy kicks out. Sammy with the Spanish fly at the top rope, and Cody kicks out. Sammy goes for a shooting star, but Cody puts the knees up, cradles him to win the match. Really fun opener here. The first match in AEW Dynamite history. Sammy goes for a handshake after the match is over, but then Chris Jericho, Le Champion, jumps Cody from behind. We go to commercial break, and then things get weird, because when we come back from break, the beating is still ongoing. Jericho is still beating Cody's ass, power bombs him onto two chairs on the floor. It's just this huge one-sided thing. First off, why was the entire beating obscured by the commercial break? Second of all, it makes Aubrey Edwards, the referee, look really powerless here, because she's trying to stop Jericho from doing it and just nothing happens. This is one of those things where why don't you have all the referees come out and try and break things up? Because you have several minutes here for them to act, and it just doesn't happen. So the match itself was good. The beatdown, I get why they did it, but like the placement and having the blocking of this whole segment where it happens during commercial break for the most part, and you don't have any kind of involvement from the referees trying to break things up, that was a really weird way to end this. Friend of the Young Bucks, Brandon Cutler, gets his first AEW singles match against MJF. It's a real battle of ideals here. People who play D&D versus people who don't. We also get the debut of the bottom turnbuckle cam in this matchup. It's a very interesting angle they use for certain replays, and we'll see that throughout the night as well. Ultimately, the match ends when Cutler is going for a top rope dive, alive, but he slips and falls, tweaks his leg. MJF capitalizes, puts him in the Salt of the Earth armbar. Cutler taps out in about 3.5 minutes. So between the promo at the top of the match by MJF and his actions in the ring and the finish, really puts MJF over more as more of a cocky heel. Chris Van Vliet's at ringside. He's introducing two guys sitting in the front row, Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes, that's Silent Bob and Jay respectively. He's interviewing them when all of a sudden Jack Evans and Angelico interrupt, and they do the ultimate heel move and telling them that Morris Day and the time sucked. Private Party, who's also sitting in the front row, they just kind of like show up and they scare the two Neon Boys away, and that's pretty much the end of that bit. And then we go to this pre-taped video where we see SCU in front of the White House. Scorpio Sky just nails the Barack Obama impression, and then after they do their shtick in the pre-tape, we go live to see them on stage with Tony Schiavone. Scorpio then volunteers Chris Daniels and Kaz to be the two representatives in the upcoming tag team championship tournament. The Lucha Brothers interrupt. We get Cero Miedo, SCU, they has fight, and all of a sudden then all the referees come out and break things up. Where were they several minutes ago when the champion, Le Champion, Chris Jericho, was beating the hell out of the number one contender? Anyway, it appears that from the beginning of this segment to the end, from the Kevin Smith interview to the fight between the Lucha Brothers and SCU, this whole thing was a way to promote at least some of the teams for the tag team championship tournament coming up later in the month. So definitely accomplished that. I think some parts were kind of like wonky, like Private Party just kind of walking up and just scaring away the newly healed Evans and Angelico. But besides that, I think it was a pretty interesting way to build these teams up. Up next, a match we should have had a double or nothing until politics got in the way as Hangman Page takes on Pac or Pac, depending on what you want to call him. Either way, I loved this match. I think this is my pick for match of the night for AEW. And I think that Page in particular is really good here. Probably the best showing he's had in months for AEW. I love Pac's flying offense here, but Page responds in kind. In the end, though, a big mule kick by Pac while the referee's not looking, followed up with the Black Arrow and the Brutalizer combo. Page has no choice but to tap out, or actually the referee, Earl Hebner, just calls the match. And so Pac wins. He's now undefeated in AEW, so kind of a downward slope for Page here. He loses it all out to Chris Jericho for the championship. He loses this matchup here. Hopefully he will rebound soon, because I think this is actually probably, like I said, his best performance in several months for AEW. Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, joins the commentary team for this next match to determine who will be the first AEW Women's Champion as Riho takes on Nyla Rose. It's a classic, David versus Goliath battle here. It's the size and the strength of Nyla Rose versus the speed and the agility and also the experience of Riho here. One moment that made me laugh was when Riho goes for like a stomp onto Nyla's back and she just gets up and Riho just kind of tumbles off. That was pretty funny. Great catch by Nyla when Riho goes for a dive to the outside and Nyla just catches her into a backbreaker. Nyla with some self-sacrifice in the match here. She puts Riho on this big stack of chairs on the outside, goes for a senton off the apron, but Riho moves, so Nyla takes all the chairs on her back. That looked painful. They promised us a picture-in-picture during the commercial break. We do not get that. Out of the break, though, at one point, I think Nyla's going for a powerbomb or something, and Riho goes for a back body drop counter, but they both kind of fall over in this really sloppy-looking way. Even if it was intentional, it still looked like a fuck-up. Like, why would you even, from a storytelling perspective, why would Riho even go for a move like that when there is such a huge weight disparity between the two of them? We get this roll-up by Riho where it looks like a 3 count, but it's not, even though it kind of looks like one. And then Riho hits 2 back-to-back Meteoras, one from behind, one from the front, and she does it. She slays the Giant, and Riho becomes the first ever AEW Women's Champion in a really good match, save for one tiny slip-up with the back body drop thing. But yeah, really solid match. I really enjoyed this one. Afterward, Michael Nakazawa goes to interview Riho about the win, but Nyla Rose is not done yet. She jumps both of them, goes to powerbomb Michael, and on the first attempt almost fucks up and drops him on his head, but she recovers, picks him back up, hits the proper powerbomb. Like, you could kind of write that away by saying, oh, she was tired, she just had a match. Of course, like, she has to do it 2 attempts, but still very scary. And it's like, it's one of those things. I love Nyla, but she's got to stop doing the stuff that's going to be that kind of risky. And she goes to put more of a hurting on Riho on the apron, but Kenny Omega makes the save. Although at first I thought it was Jack Evans or Angelico because they're all wearing the matching like black and neon green. I think that they should try and coordinate this shit before you go to air with this. Anyway, like I said, I enjoyed the match, except for 1 or 2 kind of like scary moments here and there. Still, it was a very strong match. Main event time, 6-man tag team match as the Elite. That's Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks taking on Chris Jericho, Santana, and Ortiz. Those last 2 better known as LAX, but of course that name is an Impact property, so not going with them to AEW. Early in the match, Jon Moxley appears and starts fighting Kenny Omega. They make their way to the back. By the way, Kenny's not a legal man at this point, so I guess, the match still goes on. So they're fighting their way to this VIP area. Moxley picks up Kenny and drops him onto this glass coffee table, but Moxley pretty much takes the entirety of the bump on the glass coffee table, like not even close. Anyway, after commercial break, more fast-paced action between the remaining 5 guys in the ring. The Bucks go for the Meltzer driver, but Jericho intercepts Nick with the code breaker, hits Matt with the Judas effect to win the match for Team Baddies, and then all of a sudden Cody runs down to try to even things up. Sammy Guevara shows up, takes Cody to Dick Kick City. Dustin Rhodes shows up to try and save the good guys. Then Jake Hager appears and starts cleaning house for the bad guys. They beat up all the Rhodes and the Bucks together. Gut wrench powerbomb by Hager onto Dustin through the timekeeper's table. Judas effect onto Cody by Jericho. The heels stand tall, and that's how the show ends. Kind of a cliffhanger note. You got this group of 5 guys. You got Santana, Ortiz, Sammy Guevara, Jericho, and Jake Hager all standing tall here. Who will stop this newly formed group of baddies? Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, NXT or AEW Dynamite, and that's going to take some time to get used to saying every week. But who's going to win the first edition of Wednesday Warfare? My pick is AEW, and I know people might get mad when I say that. They'll think I'm an AEW stan or something, but hear me out. Now, I think that both shows were excellent in their own way. I think that on the whole, the match quality for NXT was better. It's the standard we come to expect. I enjoyed Cole versus Riddle and Baszler versus LeRae and the Undisputed Era versus the Street Profits in particular. Only reason I'm putting Gargano and Thorne in the con section is because it's the match I cared the least about, had the least amount of stakes going into it, and frankly, I'm kind of burned out on Gargano for the moment, so I think maybe I'm resisting him in some kind of way. Also, I think the limited interruptions with commercials, it's good. It keeps the fans more engaged and it compels them to watch more of it. But I think the way they formatted the show, it's just like match, and it leaves you kind of exhausted. You don't really get a break. I'm not saying commercials are a great thing and all, but I think they're good in a way with a wrestling show because it allows you to really digest what just happened and to breathe. But here's the thing, if you know me, then you know when it comes to match quality or star ratings, whatever, that comes secondary to stories and characters for me. And I was a lot more interested in the stories and characters for AEW than I was for NXT. I think that AEW was a lot more refreshing. It felt different. The announce team I really enjoyed. The presentation was great. And I know that they get that advantage because it's the first episode of the series. And as the weeks go on, you might get used to it. So the refreshing nature of it might go away. But overall, I just enjoyed AEW top to bottom as more of a wrestling program. It just felt different. I felt like I was watching this brand new thing compared to what I'm used to with NXT. And I know there'll be people who disagree with me on this week, and I'm sure it's going to be a recurring thing every week here on Wednesday Warfare, but as far as what show I just enjoyed the most overall from top to bottom, I gotta go with AEW over NXT. But let me know what you thought about AEW and NXT this week. Who won the first round of the new Wednesday Night War? Let me know in the comments section below, and be sure to vote which show you thought was better by going to the iCard in the corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.